ends its final game with a walk-off single.
Fresh from the Major League Baseball trade deadline, welcome back to the Dog Days of Baseball, episode 7. Why don't nobody want me, man? That's what the Yankees were asking all trade deadline. Why don't nobody want our players? I am the voice of a generation. Pete Rosado, self-made man, Grizz. Beside me, Alphonse. Unfortunately, we're doing an early day show today. Alphonse at work trying to pay the bills. So not with us today. And Grizz, I hate to admit it, everybody and their mama got traded to the Dodgers, including me.
Yeah, I think I might as well just open it up with that. I mean, it seems like everyone else got better, especially contending teams or teams are in the hunt. And you got to admit the Dodgers got better without trading for, spoilers if you don't know, Crochet or Skubal. The two main guys who were rumored to be traded through trade deadline and stayed on their respective teams.
None of them moved. Goldschmidt didn't move.
Nope.
Skubal didn't move. Crochet didn't move. Tim Anderson didn't move. A lot of the big name players that, we thought would move at the deadline that we're used to. I mean, if you grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s, you were used to the trade deadline being a major time when players would switch teams. If it wasn't the offseason, the big contract, it was a player coming over at the trade deadline. Mark Teixeira famously joined the Yankees at the trade deadline. So it's so many different things have happened at trade deadlines. And this one, quiet in its star power, but very loud in terms of the number of moves. And as you said, let's go right into it. The trade deadline fallout. It seems like every contending team, and listen, I get it. The Yankees got Mark Leiter Jr. The Yankees got Jazz Chisholm Jr., got a bunch of juniors. I get it. But it seems like every contending team got better and was able to add major pieces, except for the Yankees. Just some of the trades that we saw. Obviously, San Diego getting probably the reliever of the deadline, Tanner Scott, the closer out of Miami. Man has pitched to a 1.77 ERA, has not allowed an earned run in over 17 consecutive appearances, as well as getting Jason Adam to bolster their relief core. Seattle getting postseason hero Randy Arozarena from the Tampa Bay Rays, getting Yimi Garcia to back up the bullpen, getting Justin Turner to be another infield piece, as well as JT Chargois, another relief pitcher. The Orioles getting, Zach Elfin, Trevor Rogers, Sir Anthony Dominguez. Let's add in the man who hit the grand slam just yesterday, Jackson Holliday, their number one prospect, getting called up. So add that into some trade deadline moves there. You saw the Dodgers making the biggest move of the trade deadline and getting starting pitcher Jack Flaherty from the Detroit Tigers, as well as getting super utility man Tommy Edman, reliever Michael Kopech going to the Dodgers as well. They got Ahmed Rosario once again. Even the Braves trading for former Brave Jorge Soler. The Brewers got themselves a starter. The Guardians got themselves Lane Thomas. Houston got Yusei Kikuchi from the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, every contending team seemed to have been able to pick up some major piece from somewhere. Everybody and their mama got somebody from the Tampa Bay Rays, and we'll talk a little bit about why the Tampa Bay Rays went on a big fire sale at this deadline. The Yankees only able to get Jazz Chisholm Jr., Mark Leiter Jr., and apparently word is the Yankees were in up until the last moment on Jack Flaherty. And there's conflicting reports, Grizz. One report says the Yankees were concerned about his medicals.
Yeah.
Another report says the Yankees were not able to offer what the Dodgers were able to offer. But you made a point in your opening line when you said, the Dodgers were able to kind of make a lot of their moves without really giving up a lot. And this is what I don't seem to understand, right? Because everybody that I talk to says, well, the reason why the Yankees really couldn't get anybody of substance is because they aren't willing to give up Dominguez and they're not willing to give up Spencer Jones. I don't see any other team giving up their top prospects for the players they're getting in return. It's not like the Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers barely have a farm system as it is. And yet they're giving away what's equating to a bag of balls on their single-A and double-A team for players of consequence. But the Yankees, do we only have Jones and Dominguez? Do we not have any other players that we could trade away that teams are interested in? Because they're interested in everybody else's secondary and tertiary minor leaguers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I titled the episode, Why Don't Nobody Want Me, Man? Because we all remember the iconic Fresh Prince episode.
No.
Uncle Phil, why don't nobody want me, man?
It's okay. So I guess I have to break it down like this. For the Yankees, for everyone that's out there, the Yankees did attempt to put a couple of trade pieces out there. We did check on Blake Snell. Now, I said this jokingly to Pete, which I thought was hilarious, and it's funny but borderline hurting for me. To trade for a guy that we could have gotten the offseason before the season started would have been laughable to me.
Yeah.
Because if that was the case, San Diego paid this man 3 years, 70 million, maybe a little over $70 million for 3 years. And now you're going to trade him as soon as he signs that contract. And the reason why we didn't go after him was because of the big contract that he was looking for. And he
signed late. He signed late in the spring.
Very
he didn't sign early. Yeah.
Very late. I want to say, if memory serves me correctly, he signed midway through spring training, almost towards the end. So to sit there and backtrack and say, okay, now we'll be able to pay you, it's laughable. So there's that. We did put Nestor Cortez on the trade block. There was also a rumor going around DJ LeMahieu might have been on the trades. Also, Gleyber Torres.
I got a soft spot for
person.
DJ. I really do.
I do too, but I think, and I guess we'll get into this too. I think the us acquiring Jazz Chisholm kind of puts those guys on notice, right? Because Jazz Chisholm plays the outfield. We already have pretty much, I'd say, probably the best outfield in all of baseball between Judge, Soto, and Doogie. We probably have the best outfield in baseball. So now that you put Jazz in there, you're like, okay, well, this is another outfield guy. But now he's moving towards the infield. He's playing more third base. You still got Anthony Rizzo, who's still hurt. DJ LeMahieu, up until recently, hadn't really been playing that well.
Yep. And Stanton just got back.
Stanton just got back. So now you have a guy in Chisholm who can play, is pretty much the player that we wanted, as far as he's an interchangeable guy. He can play different positions. He can play the outfield. He can play a little bit of the infield. He hasn't really played third base in the major leagues. He's played third base in his baseball career, but not in the major leagues. So now he's starting to play at third base, where we kind of really lacked that, because we were interchanging with who? Oswaldo Cabrera, DJ LeMahieu. I think
a couple years ago we had Peraza.
I think to me, I think that it correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, but I think Voit had played third base for us. I think that was probably
Voit played first.
Okay, Voit played first. I'm trying to think who played third for us that was pretty decent.
You had we had the Josh Donaldson situation at third base.
Okay, so Josh Donaldson, and then that wasn't really working out for us either. So our question, our underlining problem has been third base for the most part. It has been third base. First base, that's why we went. That's why we went and got Rizzo. Rizzo was our first baseman for a little while. Voit was our first baseman during those times where Donaldson was there. Now we have a guy who, again, Swiss Army knife, can play outfield, can play third base, to where if Aaron Boone makes that adjustment to say, hey, you're not playing as well at this position currently right now, we're going to sit you down. We can insert Jazz Chisholm in this lineup. And then on top of that, what's been proven, Jazz Chisholm is a hitter. He's not a power hitter, but he's a hitter nonetheless that gets you results. And then not only that, I think he had a club option up until 2026. So he's going to be with us up until for what, another year before we have to decide whether or not we're going to keep him on as a Yankee or not. So, I mean, it works out for us. And now also it keeps this young core going. Me personally, I really, the fan in me saw two, maybe three moves happen. Gleyber Torres, because I've been saying this for the longest now. We're 7 episodes in. When the winter meetings come, are you going to pick Soto over Gleyber Torres, or are you going to pick Gleyber Torres over Soto?
Oh, I'm picking Soto over Gleyber without
which is a no-brainer. Which is a no-brainer. But the thing is that if I can get something for you, I'm going to trade you before I let you walk and get nothing for it. Yeah. So Gleyber Torres is one person I expected to be traded.
I mean, and just Cortez, to talk about it for really quick, since A-Rod retired, since A-Rod left the Yankees, so this is since 2013, the last 11 years. Okay. 2013 was a wash. 2014, we had Solarte with the highest WAR of our people playing third base. Then we had some stability between 2015 and 2017 when we had Chase Headley playing third base.
Right.
Then you had, Miguel Andujar primarily playing third base in 2018. And then again, we had a little bit of really good time with Gio Urshela as our primary third baseman from 2019 to 2021. Then obviously 2022, we had the Josh Donaldson situation. Same thing with last year, but LeMahieu played more third base last year. And then, now we have this year where it's kind of this rotating place. Oswaldo Cabrera, our best third baseman with wins over replacement, above replacement. But, that's the thing. Third base has kind of been that rotating door. Second base to a degree as well, because Cano left in 2013. And then you have a rotating door at second base and Gleyber and then LeMahieu and then back to Gleyber and things like that. And you could say the same thing for first base. I mean, since the mid-20 teens, there's been primary positions that have been very, very rotational. I mean, catcher. Catcher was McCann and then Sanchez and then Roma and Trevino, Higashioka, now Austin Wells. First base. It was Texie for so many years until 2017. And then it's this rotation of is Greg Bird great? Is he not great? He sucks. He's okay. Then we got Luke Voit. Then we got LeMahieu. Then we got Rizzo. Really the only place we've had any really, I would say, safety has been shortstop, because we had Jeter up until 2014. Mm-hmm. And then you had 5 great years. I don't care what anybody says. You had 5 great years of Didi Gregorius.
Yes, absolutely.
Very underrated player for us. Yes, love Didi. And then you had Gleyber. Then you went IKF, and now you got Volpe.
And Volpe has been stepping up.
Right.
It looks like he's going to be another Gold Glove winner this year.
I love Volpe. Center field until, we figured out what we were doing with Judge was a bit of a rotational thing, because you had Grandy, then you got Ellsbury, who I never want to speak about again. Mm. Then you had Hicks, who I also never want to speak about again. You still had Gardner in center field, playing center field later in his career. then Judge. I mean, it's been tough because we're used to having cornerstone players at certain positions. We're used to having Jeter, Teixeira, Cano. You had the Posadas, the Bernies, the Paulies, the Tinos. You had players that were cornerstones at certain spots, and I feel like we've lost that as a team.
Yeah, and like you said, it's been a revolving door, and even I think you can argue that for every position, especially starting pitching. It's been a revolving door up until we got Garrett Cole, and now Garrett Cole. I'm going to give Garrett Cole some grace because it is hard to come back from injury and to pitch the way that you pitched. And he pitched remarkable last year. So I expect him to pick it up this second half of the season. But let's talk about another crosstown team who surprisingly also kind of won the trade deadline as well.
Well, before we get into the Mets, I want to ask you this. Okay. I do want to ask you, especially in our division. I want to ask a couple of questions here. I want to ask your opinion on some big questions that I think still exist after this trade deadline. With everything that's happened here. So my first question to you: are the Dodgers now the team to beat in all of Major League Baseball coming out of the deadline?
It's hard to say no, honestly, because what's the one thing that we've said here that their problem was? It was going to be their pitching, because eventually their starting pitching and their relief pitching started going down with injury. Now,
and then I had issues with their depth because the lower half of their lineup, once you got past Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, that bottom third of their lineup, or last four guys in their lineup, 6 to 9, were absolutely terrible.
Right. They were horrible as far
but yet they're still leading the NL West. Granted, it's only 4.5 games now, so it's pretty close.
It's still pretty close, but you gotta look at the moves they've made, and then again, to your point, what did they really give up? What did the Dodgers really give up? They didn't give up hardly anything for the players that they have. So now you're looking at it on paper with the addition of, Jack Flattery. Well, they added everybody here who they thought we were going to get Garrett Crochet, because if they got Garrett Crochet, this would again be a no-brainer for me. Like this is the Dodgers season to lose. And it's still their season to lose, honestly, because you look at everything they've done up from the winter up until now. It's their race to lose. It's their season to lose. The only way they lose this season is they get completely gassed. And right now you got Freddie out for family reasons. Prayers to him and his family. You got, I don't know if Mookie's back not yet. So Mookie's not back just yet. And now you still got Will and Max pretty much carrying the team in Ohtani. And they're still winning. They're still winning games. And now their pitching depth got even better to the point where they can close out these close games, because that was their problem during the season mostly. They couldn't really close on those close games. They had to rely on their hitting for those close games. Now, I feel more comfortable picking the Dodgers in a close game for them to close out. Just off pitching alone. Just off pitching. If you give me Dodgers up by 1 and the top of the 11th, and they have to close the door, they can do it. That's how I feel right now. They can do it. So this is their season to lose. Now, on the flip side of it, if we're going by divisional,
right?
Dodgers is definitely the NL. They're the team to beat in the NL. I didn't see the Phillies really make any moves. They might have made a couple. Forgive me if I don't have everything pulled up.
No,
But
they did make a couple of moves. I think the biggest threat to the Dodgers, obviously in the National League right now, is a team that's 4.5 games behind them, the San Diego Padres.
San Diego Padres.
And that was the next question I was going to ask you. Are the Padres now a legitimate threat to win the National League West after getting Jason Adam and probably the best reliever at the deadline, Tanner Scott from Miami?
Yeah, definitely. I think the Padres are in a position where, again, they're 4.5 games back. They're trying to push for that top spot. And I don't see why they can't push for that top spot. Arizona kind of woke up since we last spoke, because Arizona was way down there. Now they're sitting at third with 5 games back.
Yep.
So the top half of the American League West, it's I'm not going to say it's anybody's race, but anything can happen. But between the Dodgers and the Padres, if we're sitting here talking a month removed from now, because it is August, so by next month, could we see a power struggle between the Padres and the Dodgers? Yes. Again, yes. But it's, like I said, it's the Dodgers. It's their division to lose.
Right.
If they lose it, it's completely on them. The Padres can catch up. They can. They were really third place about a month and a half ago, almost 2 months. They were third place. Well, no, I'm sorry. They weren't third place. They were still sitting at second, but it wasn't this close of a gap of 4.5 games. It wasn't this close of a gap.
Yeah, no, it was not this close, and they were running away with this division. I mean, they've gone from having the largest divisional lead to, not having the largest divisional lead. Largest divisional lead still in the NL East. They have a larger divisional lead in the Central, and then in both Central and the AL and the NL.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot there. Okay, let's kind of go to something you've brought up here. Did the White Sox make the right call in not trading Luis Robert Jr. and Garrett Crochet?
See that it's so tricky, because I've been seeing other people talk about this, especially when it comes down to the White Sox. Right now, the White Sox are, let me see, they are the worst team in the league right now. They are the worst team, sitting at 27 and 84.
Yeah.
So a lot of people feel like this. Why would you trade 2 of your most cornerstone guys, and Luis Robert Jr. and, of course, Garrett Crochet, where you have a guy who, in Garrett Crochet, who's going to have control of his pitches for probably the next 4 or 5 years. He's going to be a more than solid, more than capable starting pitcher. But the problem is, and what a lot of people see it as, is this: you're on a team that's not getting any recognition. You're on a team, again, that is 27 and 84. That's the worst team. The Cubs are more talked about than you are, and the Cubs aren't doing all that well either. They're 52 and 58, but they're in a tough division in that Central. But you have 2 guys here where I think Garrett Crochet is, forgive me if I might be wrong, but I think in 2026 he's a free agent.
Yeah, I think he's a free agent not next year.
Not next year, but the year after, in 2026. Yeah. So he's going to be a free agent in 2026, which this is probably the worst kept secret. He's leaving the White Sox. I don't know about Luis Robert Jr. I don't know when his contract is up. It may be up this winter. It may be up next winter. It may be also in 2026, but that is another person that is up as well. And when we talked about both of these guys leaving the White Sox, they're at the quality of play where if they go to another team like a Baltimore, like a a Cleveland, a Minnesota, a Kansas City, even. Any one of those teams could use one of these guys right now, and they're automatically in contention. They're in that tier of they can in Kansas City's defense, they could be chasing a wild card to where if the Astros, who were dead last in the American League West, or are now sitting at the top, could use a guy like that to get them over the hump, to keep them firmly in that first place spot. So, I mean, did they make the right call? I don't think so. I think you get these guys, you get what you get for them, because I was talking with a coworker and he was telling me this: if you're going to trade for a guy like Skubal or Crochet,
right,
and if you're Baltimore, do you give up Jackson Holiday? And I was like, I was kind of skeptical on it, because I love their farm system, but he broke it down to me like this: they have the best farm system in all of MLB.
Yep.
You sit there. Do you want to? You were 101 games last season. You could get there again if you get one of these starting pitchers. Do you want to win now? Is basically what he was saying. Do you want to win now? Do you make that trade? I mean, if for Baltimore, I thought they were going to make that trade at one point in time, but I don't think it would have set well with the organization, nor would it set well with the fans.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the word came out that right before the trade deadline, Garrett Crochet made a trade demand. Not so much that he wanted to be traded, but he said that he wanted a contract extension in order to pitch in the postseason. So if he would go to a playoff team, he was demanding that he get a contract extension in order to pitch in the postseason. And he also preferred not to pitch out of the bullpen. Big thing is he had Tommy John surgery in 2022. He's pitched 114 innings this season, which is more than double his previous season career high. And so for him, it's just like, hey, I don't have a guaranteed salary because I'm arbitration eligible for the next 2 years. So I want to make sure that if I'm going to go and put myself at risk to pitch into the postseason and all this other stuff, that I'm going to be taken care of by whatever team, brings me in. I don't hate it, but it's tough scenario as well.
Yeah, it's tough because again, we're not dealing with this our own, but we got a starting pitcher coming off of injury now. So it's like with Garrett Cole, it's the same. It's kind of the same, kind of not the same, because we already paid Garrett Cole. He's good. He's set. Right. But you're talking about a guy who is going to be in the next 2 years one of the top free agents.
Right.
And you don't think teams are going to throw money at this guy? You don't think teams are going to give him the long-term longevity that he's looking for? And Crochet, he's what, 25, 24?
25, I believe.
25.
Yeah.
He's 25. We know the lifespan on pitchers. It's not very long. At 25, you're at your peak right now. Well, I would say 27. But 25, you're at your peak. By that time, he will be 27. So you're talking at your peak of pitching. You have from 27 to about 34. That's give or take 35, maybe. That's where you're going to have most of your control at. And that's where most of these teams are going to be looking for. They're going to give him these 5, 6, 7 year deals. So we're contending teams like, the Yankees, the Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, Philadelphia Phillies. They're gonna be in the hunt for this guy come in the next year or two.
Right.
Who's to say he's not on the trade block next year during the winter?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the trade block this off season.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised.
What you can get for him.
Right, because now at this point, if I'm the White Sox organization, flat out, your team sucks. Flat out. But if you can get something in return for this guy, if you can get an exciting player, if you could get something like a Jackson Holiday, or if you could get someone of that caliber to where it brings excitement to your team, to where it gets the fans to want to come out and see your team play and gets buzz around your team, why not do it? Because in the end,
Right.
you're going to develop a farm system at the end of the day because of all the prospects that you're going to get from trading this one guy. You're going to get some starting players as well, but you're also going to get a farm system as well. And that, to me, is how you build your team back up. You have to build your team back up like that.
Speaking of farm systems, here's a question. Team that didn't really have a lot to make moves with, but are the Mets, going right into what you were going to talk about, are the Mets a 2024 playoff team after their deadline additions of Paul Blackburn, and then you have your bullpen additions of Fulmaton, Ryan Stanek, and Huascar Brasman, as well as Jesse Winker?
Well, I told Alphonse here on this show, I told him, I said, you guys are going to get a wild card spot. And the Mets have been pushing for that. They are now sitting at 57 and 51. They're 8 games behind. I love the additions that they picked up. I think that's exactly what they needed. They didn't trade Pete Alonso, which is, I know Mets fans can now exhale for now.
They can breathe.
They can breathe for now. But, when we get back to the wintertime, that's when they're going to hold their breath again. But I don't see why they can't do this. I mean, the Braves are sitting at 58 and 49. They can catch the Braves. They can catch the Braves. When is their next series is against who? They play the Angels.
And the Mets have been incredible. Like I was saying this actually to Alphonse. We went to a Met game just this last week. We went to Kodai Senga's season debut, and unfortunately, Senga goes down with that calf injury. Lost for the regular season. There might be a chance for him to pitch in the postseason, but I said if the Yankees had the Mets timely hitting, the Yankees would be so much better. If the Mets had the Yankees rotation, the Mets would be so much better than what they are. It's almost as if they have the opposite of what each other needs. But the Mets' offense has been on fire.
Yes.
Okay. And it's not because of Alonso, it's Brandon Nimmo. I said this, and listen, I've said this to Alphonse publicly. I think this is the first time I'm going to say this on this podcast. The Mets fans have this big thing with Grimace, because Grimace threw the first pitch out, and ever since Grimace threw the first pitch out at Citi Field, the Mets have went on that crazy, started winning and doing everything. I actually tied the Mets' recent success to the return of Francisco Alvarez to the lineup. Catcher Francisco Alvarez, when he returned back to the lineup after being injured, everything started to really connect, and you have a lot of great things happening for that Mets team. I would go so far as saying I think they have a really, really good chance at really pushing for the top of the NL East.
That's a hot take. That's a hot take.
I don't think they overtake the Phillies, but I do think they push for that second place spot in the
and they have to start off August, they have a pretty much easy schedule. They have the Angels, the Cardinals, the Rockies, the Mariners. The Mariners might give them some trouble. The Athletics, then they play Miami and then Baltimore, and then the Padres. So now the second half of, the end of August is where you're going to hit turbulence, where you're playing Baltimore, San Diego, Arizona, and then you turn around and then you play the White Sox and you play the Red Sox and then Cincinnati and then the Blue Jays. And then the next time you really run into a team that could really threaten you is mid-September, where you play the Phillies.
Right.
Look, I said this a long time ago. I do believe in the Mets getting a wild card spot. I think it's going to happen. Mets fans, like I said, you guys can exhale for now. You still have the Pete Alonso drama going on that's lingering in the background. But for now, it's looking really good for you guys right now.
Yeah.
Looking at the teams that you play to end out the season. What the Phillies? I said that was mid-September. After the Phillies, they played Washington, Atlanta, and then they end with Milwaukee. So you get a slight break in between playing the Phillies. You play the Phillies again after the Nationals, and then you play the Braves and the Brewers. You guys have to have a strong August. You have to at least beat. I'd say you guys can definitely beat the Angels. You have already this season. You beat the Cards
You
already.
swept them. First time since 2013 that the Mets have swept the Yankees in the in-season play.
You guys have at least 5 or 6 series that you can win through August. If you win 4, I feel like the Mets are still in a great position to be in a wild card spot. Now, the real question is, if they get into that wild card spot, who is the team they're going to play?
Yeah, it's
that's the real question, because that second spot is going to be somebody either in the Central. I'd bet my money on the Central. It's either going to be the Central, a team out of the Central, or a team out of the West.
Right now, if we're looking at it, the wild card in the National League, Atlanta is right now at the top, and San Diego's up there as well. Arizona technically tied with San Diego to a degree. And then the Mets are a half game out, Cardinals a game and a half, Pirates 2.5. So if we're looking at this, and the Yankees are number 1 in the wild card as well. So if we're looking at, okay, let's say the Yankees win the division, Cleveland wins their division, it's a toss-up between Houston and Seattle. You're likely having, one of those teams from the West. It's going to be one team from the West, one team from the East, and then your third wild card, I'd say, is probably going to be between Texas or Minnesota in the American League. In the National League, I think you got the Phillies winning their division, Milwaukee winning the division, the Dodgers winning the division, and really it's going to be between St. Louis. I think you got a 5-team race here. It's Atlanta, the Mets, St. Louis, Arizona, and Pittsburgh. That's the 5 teams competing for 3 wild card spots.
Yeah.
Because the Pittsburgh's only a game behind St. Louis for second place in the Central. The Mets, I think, will pass Atlanta. The Mets are a game and a half behind Atlanta for second place in the East. And then in the West, you have the Diamondbacks only a half a game away from San Diego's spot in second in the West. So I think it's Atlanta, St. Louis, San Diego, and then the Diamondbacks and the Pirates really kind of coming in there, along with the Mets. I think you really have 6 teams fighting for 3 spots.
And Mets fans, I'll tell you right now, you're better than the Pirates.
Yes.
You're better than the Cardinals. Arizona might be a little shaky. I think Arizona might have better pitching than you. Might. But hitting-wise, I don't think so. So this again, just like the Dodgers, this is your race to lose. You guys have a very easy schedule. And all of those teams that I just named, you're better than. You're not way better than them, but you're better than them. You have better hitting. You upgraded your pitching. I think that you guys can definitely sneak in and get that wild card spot with no issues.
It's gonna be very interesting. Let's quickly before we go to our second and last topic for the day, I have a very interesting trivia question for you this week, Grizz. It's a little bit different from how we've approached the trivia before. But I think it's a really, really kind of interesting question here. You ready for this?
Let's go.
All right. Can you name all 7 ways to reach first base?
All 7 ways to reach first base.
I got them written down here. See if you can get how many of these 7 can you get? And I'll give you 3 strikes until we end out here. 7 ways to reach first base.
So let's get one of the easiest ones out the way. Of course, you can get a walk.
You can get a walk. There you go. Ding.
So let's get that one out the way.
Ding, ding, ding.
You can get a single.
All right, you can get a hit, right? You get a hit. There you go.
Hit,
Boom.
single. So that's 2. We're gonna do.
If you're watching live, throw some in the comments if you think you know. We already got a walk and a hit.
Let's do fielder's choice. FC.
Fielder's choice. Yes, there you go. Fielder's choice. You can reach first base safely.
Okay, so that's FC. We got that.
We got 3. Let's go. What's good, Mel Walker? How you doing?
Good, Mel. Let's go with, even though technically that would probably no. Let's go with error. Let's go with an error.
Yep, you got an error. There you go. All right, we've got 4 of the 7.
We got 4 of the 7. We got
a
error,
walk, you got a hit, error, and a fielder's choice.
Hit by pitch.
There you go. That's 5.
It's 5.
Got 2 more ways to reach first.
2 more ways. Let's see. I'm gonna throw this out there. Let's go with a bunt.
A what?
A bunt.
Well, that would be a hit.
That would be a hit. Okay.
That would be a hit if you stay safely on a bunt. Yep.
Okay, so that's 1. Okay, 2 more. Trying to think. We got hit by pitch, fielder's choice, errors, walk, and a single. Ooh. Is that technically that? I don't know, but I'm going to say it anyway. The pitch clock. If that's
well, that would be no, they're not awarded first base. It's a ball.
Not. Okay, yeah. That's why I was thinking about that. I was like, I don't know if that's right. Okay.
I won't count that one because that was pretty new.
Yeah.
That's pretty new. So again, 7 ways to reach first base. We've got a walk, we've got a hit by pitch, we've got a hit, we've got an error, we've got a fielder's choice. 2 more ways you can reach first base.
2 more ways. That's a good one. I got 5. Come on, man.
5 and a 7.
6 and 7. What are the 6 and 7 ways? Wild pitch.
No, because technically, if it's not, it's close. I will tell you this: it is a wild pitch is close to something. So I can't give it to you on the wild pitch, but it is close to one of the options.
Okay, it's close to one of the options. Close to a wild pitch. Close to a wild pitch. One of the options, close to a wild pitch.
When could a wild pitch? Well, no, it wouldn't actually be a wild pitch if it's if it's this. But think about for a second what a wild pitch could kind of consist of and how that could lead to a runner getting to first.
A wild pitch consists of lead to a runner getting to first. A pitch in the dirt.
When would that be a first base though? When specifically? It's a specific moment when that would actually be a way to reach first base.
Either, let me see. That's either going to be a. It's not going to be a full. It's not going to be a. It's not going to be a swing. Nah. Okay, so you got me on that one. Because I really thought wild pitch. I really thought that was that. So
the reason why I said it's kind of close, right? Okay. So we got a walk, hit by pitch, a hit, an error, and a fielder's choice. You can also reach first base on a dropped third strike.
Okay. That's what I was thinking.
Not a wild pitch.
Yeah.
But if you drop strike 3, runner will reach first base. And lastly, this was probably the trickiest one. Catcher's interference.
Yeah, you don't see that often.
Catcher interference will allow a batter to reach first base. Those are 7 ways you can reach first base.
You don't see that often. So that one would be tricky.
Well, the last time we saw catcher's interference, a catcher's wrist went the other way.
Yeah, so,
let's not do that.
Probably not the smartest thing to do.
I saw that recently, this question recently, and I was like, oh, man, that's a really good question for a baseball person.
No, that is. That is.
That's a good one. And you got fielder's choice pretty early. I know the person that was initially asked this question, fielder's choice was one of the last ones that they were able to guess. And they had to be given a hint.
I think, well, at least for me, somebody who plays the show like crazy, it's like those are like the 2 most common things, especially if your character does not have as much experience,
Right.
You're trying to level up your character. Your character doesn't get that many hits. So you're going to reach on a fielder's choice or an error most of the time, depending on who's pitching as well. And
this is true, right?
Because if you got it on the hardest difficulty, let me tell you something. You're going up against a Skubal or a Torkelson or something like that. You ain't getting no single.
Nah, see, that's why I like doing my journey through the minor leagues. Get started in Double-A.
Yeah.
Knock some homers out. I got called up to the Yankees, and I was like, oh, boy, this is going to be tough. It's going to be tough. All right. Well, trade deadline. I know technically 162 games in the season. We're well past 81 games, so technically past the scheduling halfway point of the season. But the trade deadline really kind of marking that second half of the year. So it's going to be that time, right? What are our second half predictions for some of these teams? A playoff prediction. We spoke a little bit about what we think about for those wild card positions, but I really want to focus on for a moment here. Really quickly, we look at some of the things we spoke about in the very beginning of the year. At the end of April, we were sitting here talking about the Cubs being in first place in the NL Central, and oh my God, Cleveland being in first place, and look at the Detroit Tigers and what they're doing. Houston was in last place in the AL West. Toronto looked like a really good team in the AL East. You looked at, a lot of these things in regards to what's going on with standings. And now we look at here on August 1st. About 2.5 months left in the season. I know postseason starting, in October here. Toronto's in dead last in the AL East.
Yeah.
Detroit, it's hard to be last in the Central with how bad the Chicago White Sox are doing, but technically Detroit in fourth place. Kansas City, while they are technically only 6 games out and tied for second, Kansas City not what they were looking like in the beginning of the season. Houston has gone from worst to first. Houston now being the leader of the AL West. Seattle tied for that first place spot. And, obviously Atlanta still hanging around. Chicago has fallen to last place in the NL Central. And San Diego obviously making their comeback. Who are you most surprised by when we're talking about from April to August here? Who or what are you most surprised by as we've come to August 1st?
Well, it's got to be the Astros, right? Because the Astros are always a team that's always in contention, no matter what. They're always in contention. Now, you have a new manager. The Dusty Baker era is over, and they were kind of finding their footing. And they, at this point, if you were to talk to the both of us, non-Yankee bias, by the way, if you were to talk to us as baseball fans back in April, May, maybe even part of June, and looked at standings and said, "Do you think the Astros would be at the top of the American League West?"
Right.
We look at you like you're crazy. Absolutely not. There's no way they could come back and be at the top of the West. But here they are sitting at 56 and 52. But the Mariners are right there knocking on the door at 57 and 53. And when we talked about trade deadline, the Mariners made some great moves to, pretty much take over that first place spot.
Yeah.
Because right now, I mean, it can go either way. But I'm definitely surprised by the Astros picking it up and going from pretty much the last place team in the West to being the first place team. Now, another team, now if you want to go on the National League side, you could say the Mets. Even though the Mets are technically sitting at third right now, you could say the Mets. The Brewers have held firm control of first place. I don't think they really wavered and got that first place spot taken away from them. I think the most shocking thing would probably be the Cubs not really being in the mix, because with Iganama and all
Still doing well, by the way.
They were doing exceptionally well. That's a shocker for them not to be in the mix. At least be tied with the Pirates, because the Pirates, I mean, they started out the season 6-0, 7-0, and they're still right there in the mix in third place as well. So you kind of figured the Cubs might at least be there. The Diamondbacks are trying to rekindle the magic of last year and kind of pick up where they left off at. We kind of figured the Dodgers would be at first place. The Padres, I mean, I kind of see the Padres. I'm not surprised at the Padres being in second place right behind the Dodgers. I think the more shocking thing would probably be, I don't even think that's shocking, but I think you would probably expect the Giants to be where the Diamondbacks are right about now. And the Giants,
Giants are staying in it.
Yeah, the Giants are hitting at 54, 56. They're roughly almost playing 500. So
I mean,
I think
a couple of teams you can count out, right? I think the Rays are out. The Rays are out of it after their fire sale. Toronto's out of it. Obviously, Detroit and Chicago, the White Sox are out of it. I think the Angels and the Athletics are basically out of it. The Nationals and the Marlins and the Rockies, right? I think even the Cubs only being 10 games out. If you think about it, they're only 5 games out of second. Right. Even the San Francisco Giants only 4.5 games out of third and 5 games out of second. And when you look at the wild card standings, if you really think about it here, the Cubs are really only 6.5 games out of the last wild card spot. San Francisco is only 4.5 games out of the last wild card spot. So I don't think you can count those teams out, but I do think, listen, the Nationals, the Marlins, the Rockies, I think they're all out. The White Sox, the Athletics, the Angels, and even Detroit and Toronto, I think, are all out. And to a degree, listen, Detroit's 8 games out of the wild card. Texas is 8 games out of the wild card. But the reason why I'm not counting Texas out, but I am willing to count Detroit out, is because Texas also has a lot returning on that back end that they're expecting to get in that second half of the season. And I think you're going to be seeing a 3-team race for first and second in the AL West.
Which is something that you've been preaching for a long time, where it's like, hey, don't count the Rangers out just yet.
No, I mean, you still got you
got Max Scherzer back. You still got him back.
You're still waiting on DeGrom.
Still waiting on DeGrom. So I mean, you're getting pitching back now. Even if you get, I won't say half, but let's just say a quarter of what DeGrom can be, that's all you need, really. That's really all you need to make a push. And you're 5 games back from the Mariners? 5 games back from the Mariners. Hey, I can see it being a 3-way race in the American League West. I mean, the Central in both divisions have been tough outside of probably the last place teams. Well, I'm not going to count the National League because, like you said, the Cubs are still in the mix for this. But taking the White Sox out of it in the American League, Detroit, Kansas City, Twins, Cleveland. That's a tough four teams that you got to play. Now, I don't see Detroit making a big leap because Kansas City, technically, if Minnesota loses, I don't know if they play tonight. They actually play tomorrow. They play Minnesota tomorrow. They play the White Sox. I'm sorry. They play the White Sox. So Minnesota plays the White Sox tomorrow. Winnable game, but anything can happen in baseball. Even if they drop this game tomorrow, Kansas City goes up. They're 60-49. And do they play? They play tomorrow as well. They play the Tigers.
Yeah.
Actually, they play today. They play the Tigers today. So it's a tight race in the Central. And I think it's going to be that tight race between the Royals, the Twins, and the Guardians. But I still think the Guardians pull it out.
I still don't know how Cleveland
I don't know either.
has been able to.
I
mean, they've been in first place all year, if I'm not mistaken.
All year since April.
And it's like I can't name a single member of their pitching staff if Carlos Carrasco is no longer there, which I don't think he is. Well, he is, yeah. I'm looking at their depth chart right now, but like their starting pitcher is Tristan McKenzie, Tanner Bibby, Gavin Williams, Logan Allen, Carlos Carrasco. That's their starting five. Name me a more FBI witness protection starting five that is in first freaking place. Like
and you'll sit here and be like, none of these guys are even top 150 of pitchers.
No,
they're not. They're not.
And it's the same thing with Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota.
There's two players off the top of my head, that I know that are in Minnesota. Carlos Santana, Carlos Correa, and Brian Buxton. That's it. Those are the only three players I can name off the Minnesota Twins team this year because that's how low profile this team has been. They're 6 games. They're 9 games over 500, 6 games out of first place in their division, and more than likely fighting for that third wild card spot. Kansas City, is Zach Greinke still alive? When I'm thinking about it, these are teams that, and I think this is where it bothers me when, because it's very odd when I talk about how the Yankees operate, right? I'm saying, hey, go after Jack Flaherty. Right. we wanted them to go after, we were happy that they got Juan Soto. Oh, go after Blake Snell, go after this guy, we're so used to the Yankees having these monster names. But you look at the teams that are competing this year. Cleveland, nobody. Chicago, not Chicago, sorry. Minnesota, nobody. Kansas City, nobody. When you're looking at some of these other teams, Houston has been Houston, but Seattle has been building a young team. Boston, has been a powerhouse this year. No one expected Boston to have a winning record. They're 7 games over 500.
Yeah,
and,
nobody expected that.
They're 7 games over 500 with a pitching staff that I don't even think the pitchers on Cleveland can name. Right? That's how, but yet they're 2 games out of the third wild card spot.
You can say the same thing for the NL Central. Look at the top 3 in the NL Central: Brewers, Cardinals, Pirates.
Right.
All low profile teams. You really can't name too many guys off those squads, especially pitching wise.
The reason why you can name a pitcher or two on Chicago is because you've heard of Imanaga.
Right. And even them being in last place right now, again, that NL Central is a dogfight right about now. but let's flip to the American League East. What I think is going to happen here. So somebody, and I wish I kind of got who said this. Somebody said that the Red Sox would win the American League East, and I laughed because in what multiverse are you seeing this in?
Yeah, not the current one.
Not the current, not this universe. Absolutely not. You still got Baltimore,
the Yankees and Baltimore completely fall apart.
Which I don't see happening. And even with the recent struggles of the Yankees, well, not recent struggles, but our struggles nonetheless, we're still sitting firmly at second place and only a half a game behind the Orioles.
Right.
So, I mean, that goes to show you the teams in the American League East, it's really just us. And I think we've been saying that for the longest as well. It's really just us and everybody else.
Baltimore, Yankees are the number one wild card right now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the number one wild card. I'll be very honest.
No, I don't either. I want to win the division. And looking at the numbers right now, we have a chance to win the division. Right now, we're not playing tonight. We're going home. We're going to play the Blue Jays in the Bronx, which is a very winnable series. I don't see why we can't take control of first place. Can we stay there is the real question.
I can give you a couple of reasons why we can't be in control of first place, because we have shit for brain starting rotation.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry. I had my concerns about Rodon going into the beginning of the season. I had my concerns about Nestor going into the season. Heel was great, but, you know, this is what happens when you got a young kid who's never pitched like this at this level or this many innings. You know, Stroman started out great, and then Stroman became Stroman. Yeah. You know, Schmidt's been injured. You know, we don't know what's going to happen when he comes back. And now Cole just pulled out of his recent start with fatigue. You know, so we don't really have a pitching squad that's pitching up to where they should. And, you know, listen, we spent all the money that we did on Rodon. What are we going to do now? We spent all the money. And this is also why a lot of us were afraid of spending the money that we would have spent on Yamamoto or Blake Snell, because it's like, well, are they going to be worth what they're commanding? Because we saw what happened with Rodon. But you look at the Yankee schedule: Toronto, the Angels, Texas, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and Colorado. I see the Cleveland series being interesting, the Texas series being interesting, the Toronto series should be something. I don't see why we don't sweep Toronto. Yeah. I don't see why we don't sweep the Angels. If we lose a game to Texas, okay. You know, we should sweep the White Sox. We should sweep Detroit. You know, Cleveland, we could lose a game, maybe two, right? But we should sweep Colorado, Washington. You know, I don't really see a lot of stumbling blocks until we get to the end of the season, where we've got Kansas City, Boston, Seattle, and Baltimore bookended by Oakland and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's no reason why the Yankees can't make a push for first place, and I think that's going to be the story throughout the whole rest of this month and a half, where it's Yankees or Baltimore. Pick who do you have at the top of the American League East? And I have the Yankees right now. Right now, I have the Yankees. Can they stay in control of first place? No, they cannot. I agree with you, because of, like you said, starting pitching, the relief pitching, and the closing. It's very hard. And the one thing that I am here to say that keeps the Yankees in games, and we saw it not too long ago in a series, they have to rely on bats to win extra innings, because the pitching, the relief pitching, and the closing is not going to keep them from winning. Is going to keep them from winning those games. They're not going to win those games if they're not hitting. If they're not hitting, they're not winning those close games. Boston getting a wild card spot, I don't think they get a wild card spot. I think it's a heartbreak season. They're having a better season than what they thought they were going to have. They're 57-50. I didn't even expect them to be that.
Right. I think a lot of people expect them to be under 500.
Right. I expect the Rays to be where they are, but flip the Blue Jays and the Red Sox. That's what I thought was going to happen. I would expect the Red Sox to be at the bottom and the Blue Jays kind of on the outside looking in. But here we are. I just don't think Boston makes that push. The Rays, and yeah, I think it's a safe bet to take them out of the running. It's a safe bet to take the Blue Jays out of the running. We talked about the West. It's going to be a three-way race. Flipping over to the National League, Phillies. I see the Phillies winning that division. I don't think Atlanta has too many injuries. I don't think they can keep up. I don't think they make a comeback. It's just I think they're looking towards next season.
Right.
The Mets can take that second spot. We've said it. It's been proven. I think that's something that can definitely happen, and the Mets will get a wild card spot going into the playoffs. The Central, Milwaukee has had firm control, just like Cleveland has had firm control of the Central. I do think Milwaukee wins that division. The Cards are sitting in second place. The Pirates are sitting in third. I think that's going to be a tight race right there. I don't really see Cincinnati making a push. I don't see it. And the Cubs, again, they could make a push, but they're another team hit with the injury bug, and I don't think they could really make a push for it. So between those three teams, two teams, between the Cardinals and the Pirates, it's really your preference. Who do you want in second place?
Yeah.
And I bet money that the Pirates pull out the second place. I'd bet my money on that. The West, 1, 2, 3, Dodgers win. I think
1, 2, 3, Dodgers win.
I think they stay firmly in first place, but the Padres will give them a run for their money. There has to be a complete meltdown of this team for the Padres to take over first place.
Right.
But the Padres will be in second place. I think this is how you see the standings right now. Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks, Giants, Rockies. I think it stays that way for the rest of the season. I don't think it changes. Maybe Arizona might be like Boston. They just on the outside looking in. Right now, they're a game behind second place. They're 58-51. Padres are 59-51. It's possible, but somebody's going to get a heartbreak, and I think Arizona might be the one to get that heartbreak this year. So I think the Padres take that second place.
All right. So here's a question that I have for you. Let's say Yankees win the division.
Okay.
Dodgers win the division. Phillies win their division. Which team is more of a disappointment if they lose in their first series?
Well, I wouldn't say the Phillies. Let's just get the Phillies out.
So you think if the Phillies if they win their division and they play a wild card team in the second round, or the first round, technically the divisional round, and they lose that first series, not that big of a deal?
No, I don't think so. I don't think the Phillies, maybe to a Philly fan, it's a big deal. Absolutely. But overall, will it send like a shockwave throughout the whole playoffs? No. I think the Dodgers losing is more of a shockwave. The Yankees would be a strong second. And the only reason why I say the Yankees is because the impending contracts you have coming up, the impending Juan Soto? Does he go crosstown? Does he go somewhere else?
Right.
You know, that whole impending thing, because now if you're the Yankees and you lose, it's pretty much every Yankee fan is saying, well, Juan Soto is gone. That's pretty much what most people are going to assume. Juan Soto's gone. He doesn't want to deal with this team anymore. It's not what he thought it was going to be. There it is. Now the Dodgers losing. Dodgers going out to get Shohei Ohtani, giving him that $700 million contract. The Dodgers going out and pairing guys like a Glasnow, getting guys like a Kershaw to come on for another year, getting paying Will Smith, getting Jack Flaherty and all these guys that you've gotten in the trade deadline.
Right.
To be this big powerhouse, scary team in the National League where everything runs through you, to now where we don't even know if the championship is going to come out the National League if you guys go down. It may just come out the American League now. Because right now, I think it's safe to say if somebody was to sit down and have a casual talk with me and say, hey, listen, I think the World Series trophy comes out of the National League, it's safe to say, yes, you're absolutely right. I can see that happening because it's the Dodgers' race to lose. Do I see it coming out of the American League? I don't think so. I don't think Baltimore they're definitely a better team than they were last year. I don't even think they're a better team. I think they're just about the same. They're just about the same. I think they're a team that can win 100 games. They're a team that's going to be very exciting to see during the playoffs. Have they matured a little bit? Yes, absolutely. They have matured a little bit. But I still think they're missing something to get them over that hump of we can compete for a World Series. The Yankees, it's the Yankees. They're always going to be in the mix of World Series or bust. That's how every season is. You got Cleveland, who's been a silent team. If they happen to be in the mix, I don't see Cleveland going anywhere. I don't think they can beat Baltimore. If they play a Baltimore, I don't think they could beat the Yankees if they play a Yankee team. I don't even think they could beat the Astros or the Mariners, in my personal opinion, in a playoff atmosphere. I don't think so. So the Astros is another team. I don't think the Astros is a World Series team.
No, we said that every year.
Every year, and they've proven us wrong.
Damn playoffs.
And they've proven us wrong in years that we have said it. They've proven us wrong. They've gotten to the playoffs, they've lost, or they've gotten to the playoffs, went to the World Series, and lost in the World Series. But I just don't think this particular team is that team. Could they be next year? Yes. Absolutely yes. But as of right now, no. Mariners, no. I think they're still young. I think the Mariners have the issue that Baltimore had last year. They're a young team, they're exciting, they can win games, but they don't have the maturity just yet to be a playoff team, a playoff threat.
Right.
So to me, I think it does come out the National League. And if the Dodgers lose, I think the only other two teams you look at on the spectrum, you look at either a Yankees or you look at Baltimore. And Baltimore, I'm not saying that they're a shaky pick. They're not by any means. But those are the two teams that you look for. Now, if you want to say National League, you want to say the Phillies. The Phillies can absolutely get to the World Series.
Right.
Absolutely.
Believe that.
I can believe it. I'll buy it all day. But do I think if they get to the World Series and they play a team like the Yankees, which we've seen them play already, which the Yankees pretty much went in there and took care of business. If they play a Yankees, if they play a Baltimore, granted, Philly is not 100%. They're still missing some key guys. But do I think they can hang with the Yankees or Baltimore? I don't think so. Not in a 7-game series. I think it's close. I think you get a great 7-game series. I think you get a great pitching exhibition, and you see a lot of exciting hitting. But when it comes down to it, if the Phillies play Baltimore, I think Baltimore has much better run support than Philly. When it comes to guys like Gunnar Henderson, when it comes to, you got the young boy Jackson Holiday coming up, doing what he's supposed to be doing. You got Stanton Deere, who's turned it on as of late. You've got Craig Kimbrell, you've got Corbin Burns, all these guys who are pitching. I don't think you can really count Baltimore out if they get to a World Series against Philly. Now, if you ask me, if I had to pick between Philly and Baltimore, I'm probably going to pick Baltimore just because I don't like Philly. That's just me.
Right.
But I think Philly does have the advantage as far as experience goes. And they definitely, it can definitely come out of there. So long-winded answer, but either Dodgers, if the Dodgers lose, that's more of a shocker to everyone.
If they lose in that first round.
They lose in that first round.
So I agree with you on the Dodgers there. I think a lot of people would be surprised, majorly surprised. I think if the Phillies lose early, a lot of people are just going to write this off as the Dodgers are getting it. I think if the Dodgers lose early, though, it opens the door up for just about anybody to think like, oh, crap, who's going to win? Who's going to make this World Series, especially out of the National League?
I think you get what you saw last year. Because look what happened last year. All the teams that won over 100 games who people picked, Atlanta, Baltimore,
right,
Dodgers, they all went home early.
And it'd be very interesting to see if one of these I really want to see what some of these central teams do. Like, this is really going to be the year, is Milwaukee a pretender? Or are they going to go into the playoffs and shock people? Is St. Louis going to make the playoffs? And we know what the history of St. Louis in the playoffs. Are they going to shock people? Is Kansas City or Cleveland going to shock people? Or are they going to come back to a very grim reality? I'll end on this. I'll end our episode on this and I'll pick up more on this when we come back with our next episode. Next week, we'll actually be recording next week. Because I know we were off for 3 weeks. We had people on vacation, all-star break, things like that. But I'll leave it at this. You said something very interesting about the Yankees and Juan Soto. Mm-hmm. You said if the Yankees lose in the playoffs, it creates this air that Juan Soto's not coming back. I think the opposite.
Okay.
I think winning the World Series makes Juan Soto's staying in the Bronx a lot less likely. I actually think this might be the year for the Yankees to get close, but no cigar. Because I think personally that would actually entice Juan Soto to want to stay and do the work, knowing how close he got. I think personally Juan Soto is a junkie for the big win. And I think not getting the big win actually makes him want to do it more. I think the one exception was San Diego, because I think he felt like that team wasn't really going to get him. They looked like they were going to they were a big win kind of team, but they never really were. Right. And I think he kind of saw the writing on the wall in San Diego. But I think you look at it, Washington gone, doing what he did in all those different teams. I think now you look at if the Yankees get to like the ALCS and lose in Game 7, oh man, I think that drives Juan Soto. I'll come back. We're going to win it. I think if you get to the World Series and you lose, I think that's one of those that kind of like chaps Juan Soto's ass. Like, nah, man, I ain't going out like that. I'm not letting my career in Yankee pinstripes be almost, but no cigar.
That's it. It writes for a great story.
I think if he wins the World Series in his one and only year as a Yankee,
it's like, all right, I'm out. Yeah.
Yeah. I've done, what more can I do for you?
Right.
You know, I'll go do it for somebody. I think it's kind of like that LeBron syndrome, right? I won mine in Miami. I won mine in Cleveland. All right, I'm going to go to LA. I'm going to do it over there. I'm going to do it everywhere that I've been. And you can't tell me nothing. I'm going to win everywhere.
And just like you said earlier, the Yankees always have, big names, big signings, all this kind of stuff. They also have big pairings. And this is a big pairing of Judge and Soto. And now, like you said, if you write the story like this, you get to the divisional round, you win that, you get to the championship round, you lose game 7 on the cusp of getting to the World Series. Or even if you get to the World Series and it goes 6-7 games, you lose that game 6, that game 7 in the World Series, and you're just like, nah, man.
Yeah, I don't think.
Let me get the pen. Let me sign the contract. Let's do the work.
I think if they lose in the wild card round, I don't think that keeps them. I think if they lose in the ALDS, that doesn't keep them. I think they've got to go deep in the ALCS to really kind of get that gear. Because I think if you go into the wild card game and you lose the wild card game, I think he's just like, well, what the hell? I think if you go into the ALDS and you lose to your first major opponent in a series, I think it's a problem. Unless he like severely underperforms. Like if the team does well and he shits the bed and they lose, then I think you could turn it into, well, shit, maybe I stay because had I been Juan Soto, I'll stay and we would have won. Right? But I think if he does well, if he does really well, if he performs well and the Yankees lose early in the playoffs, I don't think that entices him to stay. But I think if the Yankees make it to that ALCS World Series level, they're doing well. He's not the only one carrying the team, and they just fall short. I think that urges Juan Soto to stay. Just my thought. But again, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week with episode 8, catching up on everything we missed here. We'll be back. The trio Alphonse will be back with us. But for Grizz, I am the voice of a generation, Pete Rosado. Please keep up with us on all our social media, your sports show as well. Coming back. Trust me, we coming back. Summer break. And if all of us, Backstage Brawl, all of the great podcasts that we're associated with and on our networks, thank you for tuning in to the Dog Days of Baseball. We'll see you next week.